What happens when one of comedy's biggest names walks into what should be a friendly late-night interview, only to realize he's been set up for public humiliation? Tonight, we're diving into the explosive confrontation that ended with Chris Rock storming off Stephen Colbert's set. And trust me, you won't believe how dirty Colbert played it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story only gets more intense from here. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was moving like clockwork that Tuesday evening. The crowd was electric, the studio lights gleamed, and anticipation buzzed in the air. Chris Rock was in the building. He was the headliner, there to promote his latest comedy special, and the audience expected nothing more than a lively, good-natured exchange between two icons of wit. Chris Rock walked out to thunderous applause, his trademark swagger unmistakable. He grinned, waved, and slipped effortlessly into the guest chair with the charm of someone who'd done this 100 times before. Colbert smiled, greeted him, and set the stage for what appeared to be another late-night classic. "Chris Rock, everybody!" Colbert announced, his voice polished and theatrical. "Thank you for being here, man. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Always a pleasure, Stephen," Rock said, adjusting his jacket with that signature grin. "Glad to be back." But then, something shifted. If you were paying close attention, you'd notice the smile on Colbert's face tighten. Just slightly. His eyes flicked to his note cards. He paused. And when he looked back at Rock, there was something colder behind the charm. "So, Chris," Colbert said, voice edged with a sharpness not present before, "let's talk about your recent comments on accountability in the comedy world." Rock blinked, caught slightly off guard but still composed. "Well, you know, Stephen, comedy has always been about pushing boundaries," he replied, "making people think, even when it makes them uncomfortable. That's kind of the job." Colbert leaned in, a little too far. His tone dipped into something more calculated. "Interesting you mention responsibility, Chris, because I dug up some old clips of your stand-up from the early 2000s. Clips I think our audience will find enlightening." There was a ripple in the crowd. Nervous laughter. Murmurs. Rock's smile faltered. He sat up a little straighter. "Oh, really?" he said, maintaining an air of cool. "Well, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm sure there's a lot of material out there that looks different through today's lens." "Different is one word for it," Colbert replied with a tone that barely masked contempt. "But before we show it, let me ask, should there be consequences when public figures, especially comedians, cross the line?" Rock shifted. He was no longer smiling. "I think context matters, Stephen," he said slowly. "Comedy is about timing. It's about the moment, about real connection. Taking a bit out of a 45-minute set and isolating 30 seconds? That doesn't serve anyone," Colbert chuckled, cool and dismissive. "Context? Okay, let's provide some." He turned dramatically to the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to see is Chris Rock, in his own words." The monitors lit up. Grainy footage played. A younger Chris Rock in 2003. But the clip had been surgically edited, stripped of nuance, reduced to the most provocative sound bites. The audience watched in uneasy silence. Rock watched in stunned disbelief. When the lights came back up, his voice was no longer playful. "Stephen, what the hell was that?" "Those are your words, aren't they?" Colbert asked with faux innocence. "My words, yes," Rock snapped. "But not my intent. And you damn well know that. You took something from decades ago and twisted it to fit a narrative. That's not honest. That's manipulative. The tension in the studio was suffocating. Colbert leaned back in his chair, unfazed. "Chris, I'm just opening an honest dialogue about accountability." "Don't you dare lecture me about honesty!" Rock shot back, now on his feet. "You sit behind this desk acting like some moral compass. But what you just did? That's character assassination." The crowd was dead quiet. Even the band wasn't sure if they should react. "You invited me here under false pretenses." Rock continued, his voice rising. "This wasn't an interview. This was an ambush." Colbert remained calm, which only seemed to further fuel Rock's fury. "I think you're overreacting," Colbert offered. "And I think you're a coward," Rock said. "Because you didn't ask me that face to face. You pulled out an edited video and tried to smear me on national television. You want accountability, Stephen? Start with yourself, and then, with the entire studio watching live, Chris Rock did what few guests have ever dared to do on a late-night stage. He walked. No fanfare, no music, just the sound of a chair scraping across the studio floor, and a legacy walking out the door with his dignity intact. Colbert sat frozen, the smile now long gone. The audience was stunned. The producers looked like they'd seen a ghost. And the cameras. They kept rolling. "Chris, I'm simply asking you to address your past statements. Isn't that fair?" Colbert said, trying to maintain a calm, journalistic tone. Rock's eyes widened in disbelief, his voice cracking with incredulity. "Fair? You think it's fair to invite someone on your show, pretend it's a friendly interview, and then blindside them with cherry-picked, edited clips completely stripped of context? You think it's fair to try to destroy someone's reputation? For ratings? For your own entertainment?" The cameras kept rolling, capturing every tense second as the confrontation escalated. In the control room, producers were likely panicking, desperate to figure out how to cut to commercial without making it worse. But Colbert didn't flinch. If anything, he looked prepared, as if this was exactly how he'd hoped it would unfold. "Chris, I think you need to calm down," Colbert said, his voice dipped in condescension. "This kind of reaction only raises questions about whether you're capable of being held accountable for your words." That was the breaking point. Rock's expression darkened. He took a step forward, his voice rising. Not with panic, but with the fury of someone who'd been lied to. "Accountable? You want to talk about accountability? How about you be accountable for misleading me, my team, and this entire audience? You told me we were having a conversation. What you staged here tonight was a hit job." Security began, shifting at the edges of the stage, sensing the tension spiraling out of control, but Rock wasn't backing down. Not yet. "You know what, Stephen?" he said, voice steady but seething. "I've been in this business long enough to spot a setup, and this whole thing reeks. You didn't bring me here to talk. You brought me here to humiliate me, and I'm not going to sit in this chair and let you do it." Finally, Colbert stood from behind his desk. His smile faded, his mask of civility slipping just enough to reveal the edge beneath. "Chris, you're being paranoid. This is journalism. Tough questions aren't ambushes." Rock laughed, a short, bitter sound that echoed in the stunned silence of the studio. "Journalism? Don't insult real journalists. Real journalists provide context. Real journalists ask fair questions. They don't cut up old footage, strip away all meaning, and weaponize it to score cheap points on late-night TV. What you did tonight, this isn't journalism, Stephen. It's character assassination." The audience sat frozen. Some looked uncomfortable. Others were riveted. All of them knew they were witnessing a moment that would live far beyond this broadcast. Colbert's voice sharpened, his patience cracking. Maybe the issue isn't with the questions, Chris. Maybe the issue is that you don't like being challenged. Maybe you think you should be immune from criticism just because you're Chris Rock. Rock stood there, breathing hard, anger simmering just beneath the surface. Then, after a long pause, "You really want to do this, Stephen? You want to drag this into the mud? Because I can go there. I can play that game. But I promise you, you won't like how it ends." The threat didn't come with shouting. It came in a low, even tone that carried more weight than anything he'd said all night. Colbert's bravado faltered. For the first time since the segment began, something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty. But pride wouldn't let him back down. "Oh, I absolutely want you to," Colbert said, his voice laced with false confidence. "Please, enlighten us all. What exactly are you threatening me with?" Rock took another step forward, his voice now a whisper that somehow silenced the entire room. "I'm not threatening you, Stephen. I'm giving you a chance to stop this performance right now. Walk it back. Salvage what little dignity you've still got. Because if you keep pushing, you're going to expose yourself for what you really are. And once that happens, no amount of clever editing will save you." Colbert said nothing, and for a brief moment it felt like the whole world was holding its breath. "Because if you want to play dirty," Rock said, voice low and threatening, "I know things about this industry, about this network, about you. That would make your little edited clips look like child's play." Colbert's face paled, but he forced himself to stay composed. "Are you trying to intimidate me? On my own show, Chris? Because that kind of behavior just proves everything I've been saying about you." Rock let out a humorless laugh. "Stephen, I don't need to intimidate you. The truth is intimidating enough. Should I remind your audience about the Christmas party incident in 2019? Or how you treated your female writers during last year's contract talks? Maybe we should talk about your little arrangements with certain network executives." Colbert's professional mask cracked. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Sounds like you're having a breakdown." Rock's voice rose again, filled with cold fire. "The only thing breaking down here is your act. You thought you could ambush me with edited footage and I'd just sit there, like some rookie comedian grateful for exposure? You picked the wrong guy." The studio audience was completely captivated, some on the edge of their seats. This wasn't entertainment anymore. It was a public reckoning, and no one could look away. Colbert scrambled to regain control. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for Mr. Rock's outburst. It's clear he can't handle legitimate questions about his past statements." Rock spun to face the audience, voice ringing out. "Legitimate questions? Let me tell you what those look like. A legitimate question would be, Stephen, why did you edit out the context where I was doing a character bit about societal double standards? A legitimate question would be, Stephen, why didn't you show the part where I said I was playing devil's advocate to highlight how ridiculous those attitudes are?" He turned back to Colbert, anger flaring. "But you didn't want to ask real questions, did you? You wanted a moment. You wanted to go viral. You wanted to destroy someone to boost your ratings." Colbert's response revealed the cold calculation behind it all. "Chris, the entertainment industry is changing. People who can't adapt need to be held accountable. Your comedy has always pushed boundaries. But some boundaries shouldn't be crossed. And who made you the judge of that?" Rock shot back instantly. "Who gave you the authority to decide what's acceptable? You sit here every night making jokes about politicians, public figures, anyone who disagrees with your worldview. But suddenly you're the moral police. The hypocrisy was glaring. Colbert's career was built on mockery and ridicule. Yet here he was, posing as an ethical arbiter. I think there's a difference between political commentary and the kind of material you did in that clip, Colbert said, voice tightening. Political commentary? Rock laughed harshly. Stephen, half your show is you mocking people's appearances, accents, personal lives. You built your career on mockery, and now you want to lecture me about crossing lines? Murmurs rippled through the audience, some nodding along. They were starting to see through Colbert's facade. This wasn't about accountability at all. Sensing he was losing the crowd, Colbert switched tactics. Chris, I think you're deflecting from the real issue here. Your inability to take responsibility for problematic content. Problematic according to who? Rock snapped. According to you? Some focus group? Social media mobs who didn't even watch the full performance? He gestured toward the monitors. You showed 30 seconds of a 45-minute set and pretended that was the whole message. That's not accountability. That's manipulation. I showed your actual words, Colbert shot back. No, Rock said, voice steady. You showed my words stripped of meaning, context, and purpose. It's like showing someone saying, I hate puppies, when the full sentence was, I hate puppies being abused. You deliberately misrepresented me to push your agenda. Colbert's desperation was clear now, his ambush unraveling. I think our audience is smart enough to understand what they heard. Your audience is smart enough to recognize manipulation when they see it, Rock replied. Rock turned back to the crowd, voice steady and clear. And they're seeing it right now. They're seeing a host who invited a guest under false pretenses, who edited footage to twist that guest's words, and now is trying to gaslight everyone into believing this is legitimate journalism. The energy in the room shifted dramatically. What started as Colbert's attempt to publicly shame Rock was spectacularly backfiring. The audience was no longer on Colbert's side. They were starting to see him as the villain. Colbert's voice wavered as he said, Chris, I think you need to leave. Rock's disgust was palpable. Oh, I'm leaving, he replied. Not because you're kicking me out, but because I refuse to be part of this farce any longer. He began walking toward the exit, then paused and turned for one final shot. You know what's really sad, Stephen? You used to be funny. You used to get that comedy. It's about bringing people together, about finding truth through humor. Now, you're just another angry man with a platform, tearing people down to make yourself feel important. Colbert's face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment. Security, please escort Mr. Rock out. Rock shook his head, dignity intact. I don't need an escort. I know the way out. Unlike you, I still have my self-respect. The studio fell silent as Rock walked away, head held high despite the character assassination attempt he'd just endured. But he wasn't finished. At the edge of the stage, he turned back one last time. Stephen, when this airs, people will see exactly who you really are. That's not my fault. That's yours. Those words hit Colbert like a punch. The smugness that had carried him through the first half of this disaster evaporated, replaced by something far uglier. You know, what, Chris? Colbert called out, voice cracking with desperation. Don't you dare walk away like you're some kind of victim here. You're not the victim. You're the problem. Rock stopped dead in his tracks. The audience collectively held its breath. Slowly, Rock turned around, voice icy and controlled. Colbert, you waltz in here with that attitude, acting untouchable, like the rules don't apply to you. Guess what? They do. He stepped closer, warning clear in his tone. You're about to say something you can't take back. Colbert was beyond reason now. No, I'm going to say exactly what needs to be said. You think because you've been doing this longer, because you've got some kind of legendary status, you can come on my show and threaten me? Rock moved deliberately toward the desk. I didn't threaten you, Stephen. I offered facts. There's a difference. Colbert's laugh was hysterical, bitter. You want to talk facts? Here's a fact. Your career peaked 20 years ago. Here's another. The only reason you're still relevant is because people feel sorry for you. The audience gasped audibly. This was no longer comedy. It was pure malice. Rock's face went stone cold. Stephen, I'm giving you one chance. Apologize for what you just said. Apologize? Colbert was unhinged. Apologize for telling the truth? For pointing out that you're a has-been who can't take criticism? Rock nodded slowly. It is. The real Stephen Colbert. Not the character you play on TV, but the petty, insecure little man who tears others down to feel important. I'm not the one having a meltdown on live television. Colbert shot back, voice shaking. Rock's composure was remarkable. Stephen, I walked in expecting a professional interview. Instead, I found out I'd been lured here under false pretenses by someone who wanted to ambush me with edited footage for their own entertainment. He gestured to the audience, many now looking at Colbert with disgust. Look around, Stephen. Your audience came here to laugh, to be entertained. Instead, they witnessed a character assassination attempt. Colbert glanced around the studio and realized how badly this had gone. The audience stared at him like a stranger. Some were even getting up to leave. This interview is over, Colbert declared. You're damn right it is, Rock replied. It had been over the moment Colbert decided to ambush instead of have an honest conversation. Rock began walking toward the exit, measured and dignified. Don't expect an invite back, Colbert called petulantly. Rock stopped and turned with a sad yet triumphant smile. Stephen, after tonight, I wouldn't come back even if you begged. More importantly, I don't think you'll be in a position to invite anyone anywhere. Colbert's voice barely rose above a whisper. You think you can destroy me? I don't need to destroy you, Stephen, Rock replied with devastating calm. You just destroyed yourself on live television, in front of your own audience. I didn't make you edit that footage dishonestly. I didn't make you ambush me. You did all of that yourself. Rock looked directly into the camera. Folks, what you witnessed here tonight is what happens when someone forgets comedy's true purpose, bringing people together, not tearing them apart. He turned back to Colbert one last time. I hope you get the help you need, Stephen. Because this isn't who you used to be, and it doesn't have to be who you remain. With that, Chris Rock walked off the set, leaving behind a host whose career would never recover. The audience sat stunned as Colbert remained behind his desk, looking like a man who had just thrown away everything that mattered. The cameras kept rolling, capturing the full weight of his downfall. Everyone in that studio knew they had just witnessed something unprecedented. The man who tried to destroy Chris Rock's reputation had instead destroyed his own. And the whole world saw it live.